Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints, just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We're continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We're up to the episode called Through the Looking Glass. It is the 19th episode of the third season, aired on April 17th, 1995, written by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolfe, directed by Weinrich Colby. In this episode, in the quote-unquote mirror universe, Sisko must persuade an alternate version of his dead wife to join the Terran rebels, or he will watch her die a second time. We're joined by Clay. Clay, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm good. Thank you. This episode answers the question, not to be crass right off top. If you were in an alternate universe, would you straight up bang one of your coworkers if you could?
Not just one, too, right? He sleeps with Kira, I think, in this episode, too.
Does he?
I think so. Yeah.
I didn't know. I guess he probably does.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the only reason that Sisko seems so enthusiastic about this whole thing as he's going through the episode.
Well, that does answer one of my plot. Well, I don't know if it's a plot hole, but my big thing, the thing that stood out to me was why on earth would they ever let him talk to his wife at all, let alone be left alone with her?
Right. Yep.
And I mean, you know, if he gave Kira what she wanted, quote unquote, then maybe she was a little bit, you know, lax in her security.
That's
maybe
right.
That makes sense.
Yep. She's on familiar terms with him. She calls him Benjamin and everything. This is the second episode.
How do you not have they did the same thing in this episode that bothered me with the last Mirror episode, where it's like, it's over, and it's like, well, he gets back, it's fine, it's no problem, and nobody really talks about what happened. How do you have this episode where he apparently bangs Kira and Dax and not have some sort of weird, awkward thing as a tail end when he comes back to the station? That seems like it goes without saying.
I think we're starting to wander into the problems that the repeated trips to the mirror universe start to bring up. We're going to take a break. I'm going to play an audio clip. Me and Clay are going to come back, and we're going to break down Through the Looking Glass,
talking about the important issues of this episode.
So it's agreed. I help you get Jennifer away from the Alliance, and then you get me home.
You get us Jennifer, you can have anything you want. I just hope you can convince her to leave Tarek Noor.
I don't understand what Jennifer is doing helping the Alliance in the first place. I mean, didn't she know that Sisko is leading the rebellion?
She knew, all right. The truth is, she and Captain Sisko didn't get along too well. Then again, the captain didn't really get along with anyone. In some ways, the rebellion's better off without him. Don't get me wrong, the captain knew how to fight. But that's about all he knew.
All right, so Clay, the mirror universe, I don't know if I told you this before, the mirror universe becomes a sort of annual tradition on DS9.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The return on investment declines over time. This is, the first episode is maybe the best mirror universe appearance that we get. This is maybe the second best, and they quickly sort of tail off after this. The thing that surprised me about this one is, you know, despite our sort of frequent criticism of Discovery for not really doing anything with the mirror universe, I think maybe that is actually canon because DS9 takes a brilliant idea and does not do anything with it in the mirror universe, where it is, what would you do if you met your dead wife in an alternate universe?
Right.
And, you know, the episode opens up with this great sort of idea where I hadn't seen this in a long time, and he's looking at the picture, and he's like, he's sort of doing that cinematic thing where he's like stroking the face on the picture and looking at it, being like, oh, if things were different, I could go back and change things. The episode promptly forgets about that. It is not interested in the fact that Sisko is meeting his wife who died 5 years ago. It's the biggest problem with the episode.
Yep.
It is a colossal failure that Discovery seems to be aping in how it covered its mirror universe stuff. And frankly, this episode should have been a 5 out of 5 because that idea is brilliant. And if not brilliant, the idea is so easily explored that I don't know how you fuck it up the way that they did here. And it's really sad. And you end up with an episode of DS9 that I don't think is particularly good. It's not horrendous, but it is just kind of there, and it's a stock standard pirate swinging in on the chandelier action episode.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. I think I might have liked this one a little bit more than the last Mirror one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I remember liking that one, but feeling a little bit underwhelmed by it. And this one kind of, I guess I wasn't really expecting too much from it because I know, various people have mentioned that they get progressively worse. But as just a straight up, like you were saying, swashbuckling kind of action episode, I thought it was pretty good. That being said, yeah, I don't know how you don't even attempt to explore any of that stuff with Sisko and his wife. Like, how the last act of that episode is not him trying to debate whether or not he should bring her back with him is unbelievable to me. Yep. Like, how, especially when Mirror Sisko's dead, and there's no point where he says to O'Brien or something like that, listen, you were going to kill her anyway. Just let me bring her back with me. And because my wife is dead, her husband is dead, we can probably, work this out, whether or not this is a great idea.
She doesn't seem evil. She doesn't seem like evil Mirror Universe version of Jennifer. She seems to be Jennifer, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And the fact that doesn't come up at all is shocking to me. It's really shocking.
The way I would have done it is
Also, sorry, the fact that at the end when she's like, "You're not my husband, are you?" And he's like, "No, I'm not." She's like, well, that's weird. Anyway, see you later.
You're not going to Romulus,
O'Brien will fill me in.
You look just like him. You look surprisingly like him. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I feel it's the idea is just so ripe for things. And you know how we were talking about in the previous episode, Distant Voices is about sort of Bashir losing his mind or something.
Yeah.
This episode should have been Sisko losing his mind, right? It should have been the way that he should have approached this is a losing his mind about what universe he wants to stay in or which Jennifer he wants to take with him. And they don't touch on any of it. They don't even say it to the point where they don't even write it into the script that he's like, I've had 5 years and I've gotten over this. He just doesn't bring it up. He doesn't mention anything about it. And it's so weird. Maybe a problem is that the actress is horrible. She's a terrible actress. But it's just, I don't know. I feel that it's too important. It's like we're just keep sort of repeating over and over again. It's like, how do you have this idea and you don't go through with it on any sort of any satisfying way? It just comes out completely out of the wash as if you hadn't done anything with it at all.
Yeah, there's I don't know if this term is exclusive to pro wrestling, but there's a term they use a lot called a blow-off match, where there'll be a feud or a storyline that they're running for however long, and then it never really gets to the point where it's a money maker, but they still don't want to just drop it, so they'll just do a blow-off match where they're like, we'll wrap this up, put it at the beginning of one of our pay-per-views or something, or in the middle of a Monday Night Raw, and just kind of move on, and that'll be that. I thought that this felt like a blow-off episode for his wife, where she had been such a big part of the first episode, and even just the general relationship with him and his son, but they never really got into it in a very meaningful way at all up to this point. And this kind of felt like, to me, all right, let's touch on this. Let's give some closure to the thing with his wife so we never have to bring her up again. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if she never shows up again or if they don't really touch on her again, but that's what it felt like.
And I think that I think that them not touching on this relationship feels okay for me from Emissary, because I feel like the point of Emissary, the pilot, was to get closure for him. He was a lost soul up until that point, and then the prophets showed him a way to sort of rationalize and get over the death of his wife. So it makes sense to me that he's in a better spot here, but he shouldn't be fully healed. I can't watch this. I can't watch this episode without thinking, if I was in Sisko's place, this is the most personal conflict that Sisko has had to this point in the series. This is a deeply troubling thing that's happened to him. And instead, they play it as though Sisko, he gets kidnapped by O'Brien. He's like, where am I? Am I in the mirror universe? I heard a lot about the mirror universe. And O'Brien goes like, yeah, you're in the mirror universe. And Sisko goes, great. I bet I know exactly how to act like someone who I've never met before. And he just starts going over the top body pirate on them when he's in like their meetings. And it's so
because he knows himself. He's like, if I know myself, I'm gonna overact here if I have the opportunity to.
And it's so, I think the episode doesn't work on a narrative level, let alone it doesn't touch on Jennifer. Sisko's rationale for doing anything in this episode doesn't work for me. He has no reason to want to play along with this and go so gung-ho and over the top with it. It's just, I know that maybe we're not supposed to take the mirror episodes silly. I think DS9 doesn't take them particularly seriously. But I don't know. That's difficult. I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's a huge whiff, or if not a whiff, it fouled it off so sharply that it was like, oh, if you were really connected with that, it would have been a home run. But instead, you just hit it behind you into the bleachers.
I actually forgot until about halfway through the episode that Sisko had never been to the mirror universe before.
Oh, that's something I realized. I was so upset immediately because he jumps right into it. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, so when it started, when everything got going so quickly, it didn't really stand out to me until I was like, oh, wait a minute. He wasn't there for that last thing. He shouldn't know anything about, the way that they were playing it felt like... he
had met his version before.
Yeah, it felt like the end of Back to the Future, where Doc is like, Marty, we have to go to the future. And he's like, well, here we go again. That's that's what it felt like, the way that he was approaching everything. But the fact that he had never been there before and he was just totally down with whatever was happening was kind of strange.
Yeah. Yep. He's giving
it would have been great if the whole elevator ride or whatever was him just going like, wait, okay, so what about my son? All right, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? I'm having sex with Dax? What about this? What about this? And Kira? What about this?
Yeah. Yeah. His life over in the mirror universe seems much better than his sort of ho-hum life back in the reality. So he should just want to stay over there. The other thing about this is that crossover, the first one, neither Dax nor Bashir were in it. Here they've suddenly appeared, and Dax is very important to the whole sort of process by being his mistress, which they clarify. And Bashir is just sort of the guy wearing a long wig yelling at you role. Yeah. That's his thing, is to stand there and get punched. I don't know.
Who was it? Just Kira, or was it Kira and O'Brien in the first one?
In the first one?
Yeah.
It was Bashir and Kira.
Bashir and Kira.
So Bashir didn't exist because Bashir couldn't meet himself in the mirror universe. Or they didn't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I see.
But he's here now because Bashir didn't go over in the first place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that it's we'll get the Tuvok makes an appearance in this episode.
Yeah, what a weird cameo.
Well, it's kind of nice in all these shows are on at the same time now, so it's nice to see someone from another universe, or not another universe, but another series in this show. I like the fact that they don't stress on it. They don't say Tuvok 300 times throughout the episode. He's just kind of there in the background. You thought it was weird?
I guess it was just, I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know why, but the fact that he was there, I was expecting, it's a crossover. Maybe he'll have something actually to do. But he was just in the background, which is fine.
The season 3 of DS9, while I consider it inconsistent, we've talked about it up to this point, where I think that this middle stretch is actually pretty subpar. It's struggling to get to average episodes, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's funny that after Past Tense, we have another episode where Sisko impersonates someone, and this season could be defined by it's all about identity. It struck me right after we'd watched Past Tense. This is another episode where Sisko's like, yeah, I'll assume the mantle of that person and do stuff. Why not?
Yeah,
it feels very... Picard would never have done that. It feels very much like a Sisko trait to want to jump into these things. And I don't know. It's almost too repetitive of what Past Tense was.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I don't know if I feel like that through line would be more interesting if it was something that Sisko was actively struggling with. But I from the episodes I've watched anyway, I don't see any sense of him having any sort of identity crisis or anything.
No. No, if it was like a season-long arc where he was trying to figure out his role or what he was as a person and stuff like that.
Yeah, or just, touch on it every now and then or something, or have him wistfully daydream about something else he could be doing. I don't know. Yeah, because, what he's doing is kind of thankless work. So I could see him being a little bit cooped up and wondering if he made the right decisions about X, Y, and Z. And so putting him in these situations where he gets to examine things from the other side and all that kind of stuff could have been really interesting. But unfortunately, that's not what they decided to do.
Do you think I'm being too harsh on expecting too much out of the Mirror Universe episodes? Or do you think that I'm just supposed to sit back and enjoy the fact that the actors are not playing the same versions of themselves?
Yeah, I think from the two that I've seen, the emphasis seems to be more on the fun of it than anything else. I think...
Go ahead, yeah, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think I'm totally with you. I think they could have done so much more. I mean, the Mirror Universe is again, much like the last episode, it's a great concept that they just can't seem to do anything really interesting with, other than like, hey, look, he's acting angry. So it's too bad that they don't get into it. But at the same time, it is fun to see some of these stuffier characters get to let loose in ways they don't usually get to let loose and stuff. And not to drag Discovery through the mud again. It just heightens what they did wrong with it on that show, where it's like you don't get to see what the type they're playing against in Discovery.
Yeah.
So none of the stuff there works for me.
Yeah.
Whereas on these ones, it's like you get to see that the type that they're playing against clearly because they're characters that you're all familiar with, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that maybe my problem with the DS9 version of the Mirror Universe is that even Discovery, I think, even does this slightly better. I don't understand what is shifted in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like some people seem to be evil versions. Some people seem to be, Miles O'Brien is exactly the same person in each universe. Dax is kind of just a sexier version.
He's got a different name.
He's Smiley, which is a nice touch. But I just don't think that it's they play up the swashbuckling pirates in space angle, and I don't. That's not really what I'm looking for out of a Mirror Universe. I think that the concept is so set up for some kind of character work that not doing it feels like a huge letdown. And Discovery failed on every level of doing it, but at least when I was like, oh, the Mirror Universe is everyone is a bad version of themselves in the Mirror Universe, even though we don't know what the good version is in some cases because we never met the good version in Discovery. This is that. It's just it's a lot of, there's only so much of running down hallways in Star Trek and shooting at each other that I can take. And
a lot of that in this episode.
There's a lot of that in this episode. And I think the characters and the actors have fun with it. Kira and Nana Visitor obviously has fun playing the superintendent. It's a weird, gross sexuality that goes on in the Mirror Universe in this series. I don't know. It's just kind of, it just leaves me wanting.
Yeah. I think now that I'm thinking back on it, I think probably one of the things that allowed me to enjoy this more is because I was expecting more from the Sisko and his wife thing. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, I mean, like the fact that they don't do anything with it is baffling. And so I think I was just expecting some sort of payoff to that. So I was like, all right, this is pretty fun, and they're going to deal with that stuff. And then they didn't. And so, it is a shame. There, like you said, there's so much opportunity for fun and interesting character stuff. Especially, another thing about coming back at the end is I feel like, especially on a TV show like this, the fact that there was no scene when he comes back to DS9 and calls O'Brien Smiley or something like that. Yeah. That seems like the TV writing 101 to have a stupid scene like that at the end.
Yeah, just I don't know if this is supposed to be Sisko buying into, he's like, oh, I must act exactly like Mirror Universe Sisko. Dax in the real universe is an old man that he used to know.
I know. I was thinking about that too.
There's no why is he so willing? He kind of puts up a fight. He's like, we should go over our data logs before we start this attack. And she's like, no, have sex with me. He says, okay. Like there's no questioning. He should have some kind of question about that. Like, this is his old friend that used to be a man. And
this is I can't remember if they mention her first name or whatever, but do we know that it's the same symbiote?
We don't, they call her Dax, right? I don't know if they ever call her Jedzia.
Is Dax the symbiote name, or
Dax
is Jedzia?
Dax is the symbiote, Jedzia is the woman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I guess then it would be the same symbiote then.
Yeah, so it's
and also, I don't know if they did this just for censorship reasons, but maybe they didn't have sex, because they start making out and she pulls off her shirt and unbuttons his, and then the next scene, they're both still fully clothed.
Yeah, he's looking at a data pad. Yeah. Yeah,
and they are not on the same bed. It's like very much like a 1930s Hays Code kind of thing, where it's like his feet have to be on the floor. So there's no implication that they are having sex.
You might be right. It would be the same.
No, I'm not. They totally boned.
They had to have. And it's just what would be a good Mirror Universe episode is if the Dax symbiote is the thing that crosses over into the other universe. It's just I had something I wanted to say about that. Like, just the sleeping with Dax thing doesn't make sense. I don't understand how is there not a line at the end when they're under fire and they're fighting in the hallways and Jennifer's there and Sisko doesn't have a line, "I won't let you die again." How does he not say something like that? Like that. That's built 100%. Into this. I don't understand how he doesn't. He seems so disinterested in her at the very end. It's very odd.
She could have been literally any other character that he's even met tangentially.
Yeah, and
nothing would change.
Yep. Could have just been Nog, who gets sort of barbarically stabbed to death against the door.
That's funny, because I was going to say it could have been Quark.
Oh, Quark died in crossover, right? So Quark,
he did?
Yeah, Quark,
that's right.
Quark's dead. They're taking out the Ferengi one by one in the Mirror Universe. Although I like Nog in the Mirror Universe. He's kind of a commando, gung-ho, I'm going to yell at you and you're going to yell at me kind of character, which is different
also,
from
what else would have been good? Could have been Jake. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Although, I say it would have been good, but the whole point of we're having this conversation is that they didn't do anything with the character.
Well, right, like... Yeah, this would have been the episode to have Jake in, right? Like, Jake should go back with Sisko in this one and see his mother.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah. Jake hasn't been, I don't think Jake was in Distant Voices either. It's been a little while since we've seen him. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think about what actually happens in the episode now. It ends up in this sort of action-y thing. I feel like all the Mirror Universes kind of suffer from how many rebellions can happen on Terek Nor in the span of a few years. Like they never seem to lock down the security or anything like that. It's always a very, the humans are uprising and they're going to be attacking us and we lose control of the station and everything.
Also, it did answer a question that I had from the last one, which was, I didn't understand the geography of their ore processing plant.
Sure.
Because it seemed like it was in a cave. So how could it be on the station? But they do pretty clearly say that it's on the station.
Yeah, it's like the processing room or something. It's in the middle of the station, I guess.
Seems like a strange room. I wonder what that room is on the regular one.
Right. It's probably a cargo bay or something, right? I guess. Yeah. It's interesting to me. Like, they've never, if you're watching the show, they've never really delved into the layout of the station and how it functions as a mining station. Once you know it, you can kind of look at it and go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But until then, it doesn't. And it's funny because the design of the station is clearly very strongly influenced by the purpose that the station serves. Like the sort of arc design where a lot of ships can come in, it has the central processing area and then has sort of like the promenade that circles around it where people can live. I don't know. It's for how clearly designed it is to be that, they don't really care. There was one episode that the only reason I really liked the episode is because it really delved into the history of the station as a death camp mining station. And they just haven't touched on that since. It's just, it's odd, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what to add to that.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't really have anything else. I mean, So are we just supposed to is this episode saying to us that Sisko's relationship with his wife is healed at this point? He is over her.
I kind of feel like it. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. The fact that he showed almost no emotion to the fact that he was like, even the first scene with her, why he's like just all business.
Yeah.
There's no like moment where he's taken aback at seeing his dead wife. He was still in his
refractory period, Clay. Still got to work up the energy.
Depends on how much vitamin E he can get his hand on.
No, I 100% agree. He is, he does not, it doesn't even, seeing his wife doesn't even knock him out of the character of being Mirror Sisko. He still maintains that. He doesn't like crack and say like, oh my God, it's Jennifer. He just yells at Garrick and tells him to get out.
Yeah. And even like when O'Brien tells him about her, he's kind of like, oh, well, that's odd. And O'Brien's like, why is that odd? It's like, well, she's dead. Like it's he's just so unaffected by it. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know. I think we're supposed to assume that this is this episode extremely poorly saying that Sisko is over his wife, and that should have been the focus. And like, he doesn't need a fake version. It's not the Discovery version. Where the whole point of this episode is that maybe going in, if I was rewriting this, Sisko would go in, be shocked to see his wife. He'd have a whole episode built around whether or not he wants to go back or whether or not she is the only thing that means anything to him. Mm-hmm. He'd ultimately decide that he's over it. She's not real, and he can go back to the station and pick up his life where he left off, and that this is all over. Episode touches on none of that. It is not interested in that, and that's just really surprising to me.
Or I would say my slight edit would be that he spends time trying to decide whether or not he should bring her back with him.
Right.
But doing so would be taking an element away from the rebellion or something like that. So he has to decide, whether or not he wants to be selfish and bring her or leave her so she can help the rebellion. And, then he has to make that decision.
What's Sisko's motivation here? Does Sisko care about the mirror universe? Did that come across to you? I spent this episode being extremely unsure why he's doing anything that he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea. Because it's fun.
Yeah, basically. It's not every day he gets to break out and
also, I assume he was told about his relationship with Kira beforehand, because he just jumps right into that one.
Maybe he had such a strong hit with Dax that he's like, you know what, I can do this. I can do this with anyone that I goddamn well please. Mm-hmm. One of the weird, the Kira, when we meet Kira, Superintendent Kira, and she's on the sort of lap of that guy who's shirtless, and she's stroking his head and everything like that. Star Trek's sexuality is disgusting, but I can't look away, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, it's very Roman.
It's very Roman and very sort of heavy breathing and sort of like groping and stuff. And it's just, it feels very, very sloppy to me. It's not romantic at all. It's just, very, very odd. It's almost like got this hypnotic quality when she's like stroking that guy's head, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, god damn, this is bizarre. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's supposed to be like overindulgent, you know? So
she should be eating grapes.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a man and a woman there that she's into, and it's equally gross on both ends.
Interesting that, right? That's a not a Discovery invention, I guess, right? Because what the hell is the Georgiou at the end of the Discovery first season, spoilers, is seen in bed with a woman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So maybe that was not as sort of forward thinking as Discovery thinks it is, because Kira seems to be the same way.
Either that or the Discovery writing team is paying attention to very odd details about the reference that they're looking at.
Like, why are there so many shirtless men getting their heads stroked in this series? It doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, I guess it's all in canon at this point. Mm. Yeah, I think we're done with this one, talking about Through the Looking Glass, which is a Smiley O'Brien feature.
This might be spoilers for future seasons, but does Mirror Kira ever come to the Prime universe?
I'm not up to date. I can't answer that effectively. I've also been devastated by remember Destiny, the episode, The one where they talk through the wormhole. They send the Cardassian thing to talk through.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I was very wrong about the communication relay not coming back, and it does. It didn't stick with me, but it is a part of something going forward. So I'm hesitant to say anything about Kira. I don't really remember. These are the two Mirror Universe episodes that I remember the most. So I don't know if that's
is the communication array thing. Is that what the Sisko's wife is working on in the Mirror Universe too, or something similar to it?
Oh, is it? What is she working on? I don't know. This up now.
It was another, technical term that is not a real thing. But for some reason, it just in my head, I remembered it as I interpreted it as being similar to the thing that they were doing, that they had done in Destiny.
No, it looks like she's working on a version of the Death Star. She's working on a transspectral array that will enable the Alliance to root out
it's a
the
different
rebellion.
Array. Okay.
Yeah, it's a different array that they're going to use to root out the rebellion of their bases in the Badlands. So it's not quite the same thing. Although her characterization of the Mirror Universe is interesting. She wants to do this to end the bloodshed, but she's working for the bad guys, which is an interesting. They could have built something off of that for the episode, but they didn't really. That
could have been good.
Yeah, that's something to go into. It's because she is not a bad person in this. It's just that she is choosing to do bad. How would you describe DS9's Mirror Universe? I guess if you were running the writer's room and you had someone and you wanted someone to write a Mirror Universe, what would you say DS9's take on the Mirror Universe is?
Oh, geez. Kira is evil.
Yeah.
That's kind of it at this point.
I mean, I'm not being. I'd say it's a pirate theme. It's very piratey. It's a lot of.
It does. It feels very piratey. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like people should just be swinging in on ropes into Kira's the ops meetings and stuff like that. It's very Hook.
Yeah. And I don't mind that. I don't think that and I might be contradicting myself if I've said this differently previously, but that was just Mirror Clay saying it. I don't mind that the Mirror Universe is open to interpretation. They at least seem fairly consistent in their presentation so far in this series. So that doesn't really bother me that it's not, goatees and exact mirror opposites like it was in the original one.
Right.
So yeah, I value consistency probably more than anything else, and having a reason to use it. And so far it's been fun, but I don't know if they are really justifying the use of it as much as they could be.
I feel something that's unique about DS9 compared to TNG is that, and I don't know if this is just my bias of knowing TNG better. I feel like I see the yearly schedule of DS9 more than I ever felt in TNG. I feel like I'm like, oh, time for that Mirror Universe episode. It's coming around. It's that time of year again. I feel like the scheduling of DS9 episodes is more obvious to me, and I see them coming, and I'm like, oh, of course they have to do this episode. Oh, of course they're going to do their Ferengi episode. Oh, of course they're going to do this. And I don't know. TNG probably did the same thing. It didn't feel as obvious to me. I didn't notice it when it came up the way that I do here. One thing about the Mirror Universe that I think is kind of interesting is that the Mirror Universe is really effective in TOS, right? Because the TOS universe is the sort of very good moralistic Gene Roddenberry thing, and it's compared against an evil fascist empire. Is there a Mirror Universe? So it's literally a dark mirror for themselves.
Right.
DS9, I don't know if this was a listener or someone who made the point. DS9 is already the most cynical of the Star Trek shows, so it's hard to do a Mirror Universe of this series.
Right. Yeah. I would say the same for Discovery too.
Yeah.
Discovery, they just made it literally darker.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of the issues in it would be more interesting handled in the real Prime universe, I feel like.
Right.
I'd rather have, I don't know if it would be better, but if Mirror Jennifer came through to this universe, I think that's more interesting than him going in and seeing her, because if she was over in our universe, she'd see Jake, and Sisko would get a sense of this is how things could be if we weren't in this bizarre pirate universe.
Yeah.
It didn't come across.
I think I don't know if I'd ever really thought about that before, about how it's hard to do a mirror universe for a show that's already really cynical and dark. But it makes me think that if I were to handle the mirror universe in DS9 or even Discovery, I would go the other way with it. And why not have the mirror universe be a utopia?
Yep.
But maybe the utopia is not under the means that are exactly in line with what the Prime universe is all about. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. It's like a fascist utopia. Like they've gotten everything to be working, but it's because of sort of brutality almost. Like the ends. It's a question of, do the ends justify the means, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And you can have, if your show is in a negative space, then it would make sense that your mirror universe episode would be in a positive space, because you are directly contrasting the themes and the presentation of the show.
Yeah.
Which then causes your characters, who are in a very different headspace, to think about things very differently. Whereas if you just cross over and it's like even darker and even more weird than the one you're already in, it's difficult to really relate to that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what would be a bigger mindfuck for Michael Burnham to go into the mirror universe to find out that she's also an orphan there and dead, or to go over there and find out that she's like, her family is alive and she's, living a great life, you know?
Right. Because yes, if her mirror universe was, she did not do what she did at the Battle of the Binary Stars and everything turned out better, that's a world that is upsetting to her. Because she would go back to her reality and have to be like, this is all my fault. What's happened to you?
Yeah. And I think we've talked about that before too, where the mirror universe works best when they handle it with sort of a Ghost of Christmas Future kind of,
right, or
Ghost of Christmas Past kind of It's a Wonderful Life type approach.
Yep.
And this episode here definitely does not have that, but it could have. Like, I think that's where the element with his wife would have come into play, is, that's it brings in that aspect of what if that is so fun and effective in the mirror universe. And unfortunately, it doesn't have that.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. All right. Well, we talked about this one enough. We're going to take a break. I'm going to play an audio clip. We'll come back and we'll give our final thoughts, and we'll read some patron thoughts.
He's dead, isn't he?
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Who are you? Really?
It's a long story, but ask Smiley. He can fill you in on the details.
He seems like a good man.
He does it that. So, what are you going to do now?
Oh, I'm sure Smiley will find something to keep me busy. You're not really going to visit the Romulans, are you?
The deal was that I get you off the station, and then I go home.
Will I see you again?
I don't know.
All right, everybody. So if you support the show on patreon.com/the Pensky File, you get to leave thoughts about upcoming episodes. We read and react to them on the show. So Eric McGowan says, Through the Looking Glass, the second outing to the mirror universe just doesn't have the same sparkle that crossover had. The plot is boring, and the relationship between Sisko and Jennifer is just flat and dull. Stephen Cobb says, Through the Looking Glass, so the Alliance totally has cloaking devices. Also, how weird was it for Sisko to hook up with Jadzia? That felt so out of character for Sisko, because the show went to great lengths to establish that Sisko thought of Jadzia like Curzon. I can't even think that Sisko secretly enjoyed it, because he made it clear it would be like hooking up with his old mentor. He has mentioned that in previous episodes. Why did that happen here, Clay? We've talked about this, but I don't think we really got to the core of why did this happen. It's just the mirror universe in DS9 is supposed to be fun, right? Is that it?
Hey man, maybe things would change if Prime Universe Dax took her shirt off. I don't know. Noticed how she's never done that.
It's true. It's always so buttoned up and firm and sort of by the book and everything. She just needs to let loose a little bit.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I mean, I guess it is just like, mirror universe fun. But that's another instance where they could have been like, I don't know, just give her a different name or something.
I was
different symbiote.
Yeah, a different symbiote would have been interesting. I was reading a little bit of background about this. Apparently, I don't know how true this is, but I see it on the internet, so I'm going to accept it as gospel. But apparently, Avery Brooks was very excited when he got the script here because he's like, "Oh, this is the first time that Ben Sisko will have had sex." And do our actors aware that they're not really having sex when the script tells them that they're the character? Like, why would an actor find that to be exciting? It's so strange.
Method acting.
Method acting. So after these takes, Avery Brooks has to walk off set and go into his trailer for 3 minutes and then come back out and be like, okay, I'm ready for the after scenes. Let's see here. Holly McLaughlin says, not a fan of the Mirror Universe, but this is my least disliked Mirror Universe, which I guess means it's not terrible. Joint Mango says, through the tooting gas, or how Ben and the audience should stop worrying because that is not Jenny from the block. This and the next Mirror Universe eps are the runts of the litter.
Wait, hold on. Could you read that first sentence again?
Sure. Joint Mango says, through the tooting gas, or how Ben and the audience should stop worrying because that is not Jenny from the block. A lot of references.
For the New York Times or something? The Daily News or whatever, which one of those it is? Well done.
New York Daily News. Chad Wiley says, through the looking glass. After crossover, I consider this to be the only other watchable Mirror Universe episode. It's not as good as the first one, but it has its moments. The most interesting angle to me is Sisko trying to deal with the reality of another Jennifer. I think there's a lot of interesting story to get out of an alternate universe version of a dead loved one. Someone who's different from the person you knew, but the same in some little ways. I think that would really mess with one's head. DS9 explores this a little bit, but I would have preferred that to be the main focus of the show. Instead, we get a rescue story that's hard to get interested in because we don't really care about any of the characters except for Sisko. Also, this episode begins the transformation of Mira Kira from fascinating Ducat stand into one-note sex kitten, which is hard to forgive.
There were a lot of suspicious low shots of Kira. In this episode.
They love her ass. Anytime she can walk out of the room, they just shoot her ass the entire time. Yeah. I know you liked Kira. I don't know if you've been watching enough. I'm a little concerned with how they're handling Kira at this point.
I don't know if I'm catching enough of it because I feel like she hasn't really been prominent in the last few that I've watched.
No, they're doing a thing where
is she in mourning after Billy was dead?
After Belial died. So the Belial thing, you didn't see that episode, but her boyfriend died in that episode, right? Mm-hmm. She is not a focus of the episode. It's a Bashir episode.
That's weird.
It makes no sense. You watched Heart of Stone, so they've started to pair her with Odo, or not pair, but they've hinted at this relationship. That is similarly disturbing because, not disturbing, but it's similarly bad writing because that relationship so far only takes place in Odo's perspective. So Kira is sort of an object in that storyline, and that's the way that Belial's story was too. Kira was just kind of on his arm. She was the girlfriend who is irrelevant to him dying in this episode. Yeah. And it goes into your thing about she doesn't have a lot to do at this point. I think that's kind of the rudderlessness of the show. Her role is not really clearly defined here. And it's a little bit annoying. It's not good writing for a character who's very strong. Let's see here. Distant voices. That's it. I think that's it. Those are all the Through the Looking Glass episodes. Let me actually look and make sure that I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. No, that's pretty much it. All right, so Clay, on our 1 to 5 rating scale, what are you going to give Through the Looking Glass?
I'll give it a 3. Mostly because of more great Andrew Robinson reaction shots, which are very. There's a very stark contrast in this episode when they cut away to Andrew Robinson. He's like earning his money, and then they'll cut away to Sisko's wife, and she's just like like a deer in the headlights.
She's. She's not very good. Andrew Robinson is earning his money and she's cashing checks, I think would be the analogy there.
Yeah. But yeah, I everybody seems to like this one more than the last one, and I don't know if I like this one more than the last one legitimately, or if I just, I enjoyed this and I remember the last one being a little bit underwhelmed by it, but I don't remember it being bad or anything. But yeah, so I'd give it a 3. I think it's fun. I do think there is a crap load of missed potential here, which is unfortunate, but what are you gonna do?
I'm going to give it a 2, mostly because I can't overlook that missed potential, really. And I think that I think crossover, the first episode, the reason I would say it's better is that it is more, because it spent the time establishing the mirror universe of characters like Odo in the mirror universe and Quark. It was more interesting to me than this one, where I don't really feel that this is anything but Sisko goes into an alternate universe where everyone is a little bit different from themselves. That's fair. And I liked crossover for that. I would have been fine with crossover being the only mirror universe thing, but they came back for this, and it just I don't really enjoy this kind of action-y. This is bad Star Trek action, I guess, is how I would describe it, because eventually they do good Star Trek action, but this is not really it. It's not what the show does well.
Yeah, there's lots of hallway running in this episode.
Yeah.
Running and shooting, which has never really been a hallmark of great Star Trek.
No, I mean, to do that, you have to have a very Iron Man version of what the conflict between Kira and Sisko is. And they're just bickering about getting the scientist back. It's just not interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if I was projecting onto this more than there was, because I think you do get a lot of mileage out of the fact that it is Sisko's wife. So I wonder if I was thinking like I was doing the work for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where they
Your
weren't
head
actually
canon
doing
is
anything.
stronger.
Yeah, they weren't doing anything, but in my head I'm thinking, oh, Sisko is saving his wife. Obviously, that's a big deal. But when you actually take a step back and look at what the work that they did, they're not supporting that with anything substantial at all.
Yep. So I'll give it a 2. Clay will give it a 3. That's about it for Through the Looking Glass. We made it through our Mirror Universe episode of Season 3. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is patreon.com/thepenskyfile. A couple dollars a month, you get extra stuff. The other best way to do it is to rate us on iTunes, because that still matters in this 2018 world, and it's much appreciated to the people who go there and give us a rating. Other than that, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, go to the Discord channel. There's all that good stuff. And then I think that's it. And as always, the patrons at the Captain tier get a shout out. Thanks very much, goes to Stephen Cobb, Samuel Custer, Santos Gonzalez, Robert Cummins, Andrew Kairlog, Matthew Cutler, Spinobi, Russ Graham, Eric Johnson, Nathan Elliott, Decker Sebastiani, Neil Brennan, Carrie Mobility, Michael Pond, Bradley Killens, Rune Vendler, Jay Stanley, Mike Burnett, Matthew Ross, Ben Douglas, Kyle Barrett, Joint Mango, Tarek Latif. Thank you guys very, very much. It's much appreciated. And we went over the last goal recently, so we have to do 2 podcasts this month. So we'll have the AMA coming up eventually when me and Clay get to record that. So you can look forward to that. Thank you for supporting the show. Clay, did you have anything you wanted to talk about before we go?
Again, we got a Batman podcast coming out pretty soon with me and Sean Murphy for Batman the Animated Series. It's called the Bat-Ass Podcast. And if you want to get on board with that, you can follow us on Twitter at Bat-Ass Podcast, which is BATTASS Podcast. And it should be coming out pretty soon. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
There's a channel in the Discord for it. You can leave your excited pre-release thoughts there. Let us know what your favorite is, although I guess everyone's favorite is supposed to be Heart of Ice, I guess, because that one won an award. So,
spoiler alert for our podcast, but it's really good. The episode is really good. It's like it is such a stark difference, and no, that's not to say the other ones are bad, because they do swing in quality quite a bit. But like Heart of Ice is so clearly a fantastic episode of television that I didn't realize exactly how stark a difference it was until we did this run through. So I gave that one a 2. So no, I'm just kidding, obviously.
Something to I guess that could be the non sequitur. The podcast has been the only thing that's caused me to sort of, outside of modern shows that I semi-watch this way, but to go back and rewatch something all the way through consecutively is eye-opening, and it's kind of like tripping on LSD or something. It like opens your mind to this perspective that you never realized before about how bad your memory is of things, and how if someone asked me about a movie that I saw a year or 2 ago, my opinion is virtually meaningless if I haven't seen it recently. It's just me going off of, I remember that one moment, and that was great, so I'm going to say that's a great movie. It's interesting. I don't know if you guys experienced the same with Batman, or if it was just kind of if you remembered it exactly the same way.
Well, yes and no. I think even at the time, for me and Sean, that Batman show was so different than any other cartoon that was out, because it was clearly made by people who understood the source material, cared about the source material, and were not really pandering to children. Yeah, because there's some shit in those episodes, which, even one of the ones that I talk about as being one of my least favorite episodes is one where Bruce Wayne gets amnesia and ends up living in the
sewers.
More or less. He's working in like a chain gang of homeless people or something. And watching it again for the show, I was like, man, I still don't really like this episode, but the first 15 minutes is pretty adult stuff. It starts off with Bruce Wayne visiting a soup kitchen, and the guy at the soup kitchen talking about the homeless epidemic. And it occurred to me, it's like, the fact that it's mentions homeless people at all, and it's not in a comedic sense, because usually if there's homeless people in a cartoon, it's for some sort of joke.
Yeah.
The fact that they mention homeless people at all in a serious sense, and then the rest of the episode deals with the abduction and mistreatment of said homeless people, that's pretty intense stuff for a kid's cartoon. And there's a previous one earlier in the season called POV, which features multiple points of view and unreliable narrators. And it's like, you're not going to see that on like Thundercats,
And extremely hardcore sex from multiple.
No, they don't do that until they get to the movies that have been coming out the last couple of years, which, woof, man. I just watched, I watched about 20 minutes of Batman and Harley Quinn, which is the most recent one. Holy shit. I don't know if you remember, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so, they brought back Ren and Stimpy, and they brought back John Kay to do it, and it was like really fucking weird. It was like gross and really sexual and like kind of angry.
Yep.
And it almost felt like he was doing it because he was contractually obligated to, so he was just going to say, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever. That's what this movie feels like. It's very sexual. In a way that I didn't think people were doing with comic book characters anymore, because of, changes in tastes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like Nightwing tracks down Harley Quinn. She's working at a superhero themed Hooters restaurant that is not shy about showing you many sexually sexed up versions of superhero characters.
Yeah.
He follows her home. They get into a small fight. She knocks him out. When he comes to, he's tied to her bed, and she changes clothes in front of him, which, no lie, swear to God, they don't show it explicitly, but the implication is very clear. He gets a boner. And then they have sex. And then after she teams up with him and Batman, they're in the Batmobile, and she's basically says like, what do you think, we were dating now or something like that? And then she says, maybe I'll call you if I run out of batteries.
Oh,
that's edgy. Then later in that scene, she farts in the Batmobile, and Batman says it smells like discipline. It's one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. That comes after the cartoon version of The Killing Joke, which features a half an hour of material that has nothing to do with the story, and which features Batgirl having sex with Batman, Batman ghosting her, and then Batgirl quitting because of that. It's like, I don't know what's going on over there, but it's very strange. And I don't know how we ended up getting to this topic, but it's nothing like the original show.
So check out the Badass Podcast, which will not be discussions of the most recent animated DC stuff. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I had some point I was going to make about that, but it's gone now. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to the show. We are through with this section. We'll be back with Improbable Cause, and then The Die is Cast right after this, so people are very excited for this. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Truly appreciate it, and we'll be back in a couple days with Improbable Cause. See ya.